Secretariat. We are already 5 minutes past the time. Please let us know if we can start already, or should we give members some few minutes?
Thank you, co-chair. I think we are 23 and we want to respect the time of those who made it early.
Yes.
I request that we get started, and I can see the care team is in the house. Over to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we have good attendance so far, and some of the members may not be with us for a very long time. So maybe we should give it to Noreen. Noreen, if you can unmute, over to you.
Okay. A very good morning, colleagues online, and thank you for logging in. Happy to have all of you here. I'm so excited for this yet another webinar. I know this is not the first of our kind, but yes, that is the way we do it. Well planned, strategic, and trust me, it's gonna be informative for all of us here. I want to welcome all the participants online. Over 22 are here. I want to say thank you very much for logging in on time. I also want to say that, yes, we have our key presenters in the house, and I'll have a time to welcome them when the due time comes. But I also want to welcome our advisors. That is Naomi and Donna. I want to welcome the C4C Technical Working Group. Most welcome, and thank you for logging in. And these are the persons that stand in for the different country directors that are the signatories we have, and that help us support, resource mobilize, and technically guide on how we can run the C4C chapter in Uganda better and to the height that we want it to be. I want, at this very moment, I want to do a sharing of I do want to share the program, which I believe that many of us do have.
It's already on the screen, I think.
Okay, are you able to see that?
Yes, we are able to see it.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we are going to have our program run as that. And for me here, I want to alert all of us. Keep on standby. Time management is going to be very key here to all of us. And the time allocated is the time we are going to use to save time so that we catch up with the other assignments. I know we are very busy people, you are very busy people, so we want to be very deliberate on time management. Not only for this webinar, but as a life principle, a principle in life. Time management is very key here. So without wasting much of your time, allow me welcome in the C4C leadership to give us their remarks as we are to begin this webinar. Over to the C4C leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noreen, for the overwhelming welcome. We appreciate your commitment towards the C4C Uganda. And I want to welcome every member who is present online attending our webinar on positioning national actors into risk management within project framework. I would love to thank you for honoring our invitation to participate in this very important webinar. And we want to take a special appreciation to CARE International, really, for taking a bold decision and step to bring together all the endorsers to be taken through the aspect of risk management within project framework. We really appreciate you for that. And then, why are we here today as local actors? We are here today to learn about the very important aspects of risk management within project framework. And today we are delving deeper into project management. Previously, the last 2 years, we were able to have internal risk management training that was facilitated by the internal risk management group, spearheaded by Plan International. It was very important. It was crucial for all members who participated in that training. And today we are making a step forward, now going deeper into risk management within project management. Why do we think it's very important as national actors to be conscious about risk when it comes to project management? One, it's very important to understand that risk management is an essential aspect of project management, and it plays a critical role in the success of any project. Therefore, there are aspects that are very important to note when it comes to project implementation and management. These factors may include safeguarding. It may be reputational in line with the organization, and then it may also be very political, environmental, and also has security aspects. So it's very important that CARE International has given us this opportunity to learn, to unlearn and relearn some of the considerations or very significant aspects when it comes to risk management in project management. So I therefore implore all the endorsers or national actors who are giving their time to participate in this important webinar to take note of what is unfolding next through the presentations that are coming next. I therefore want to welcome all of you, and with all due respect, I declare the meeting or webinar open. Thank you very much, Noreen. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. That is our Chair, Joyce. Thank you so much. Thumbs up for you for being a good time manager. Thank you very much. A message very clear. Now back to me, not as the moderator this time round, but as C4C technical lead, in brackets, Aina Godfrey. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big task ahead of us, but with the energies, the capacities, we have to be very cognizant of our individual and organization capacities that yes, we can, and together we can. So as the technical working group, we still have to be more harmonized so that we finalize the C4C roadmap and then share this with the signatories who are the key in resource mobilizing for the Charter of Change chapter in Uganda. I also call upon us to continue moving in a harmonized, coordinated approach to work in one way that is trusted as we move towards this localization agenda. Like, I don't want to use the words of my senior, Apollo here, my colleague, not senior, my colleague Apollo, he normally says scattergun approach. That is not the way we want to move. We want to be more organized. And here I want to assure you that CARE and the signatories have pledged and will continue to provide technical support in any way that is required so that we have a well-established function and trusted localization framework that shall enable sustainable, coordinated, functional, and structured operation of the global localization commitments. And this webinar is one of such a kind, in a way that we are going to share information, and you very much know information is power, information is money. We are in the same way as we learn about the risk management, it is a way of resource mobilizing for the local actors. So as we move to make sure that local partners, we move with them, we have also to make sure that the local partners are fit for the purpose, and hence this webinar. The webinar in itself is telling us why not tackle risk management if we find this is one of the issues we have to lay emphasis emphasis on positioning national actors into risk management within Project Framework. At this very moment, I want to humble myself as I invite in Country Director of CARE International, Mr. Apollo Gabazila, to give us his words of wisdom. Apollo, you're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Noreen. Thank you, John Duck. Thank you, Joy, for speaking so very well about the work you're doing with Charter for Change Uganda chapter. Let me start by recognizing and congratulating the leadership of Charter for Change from the time we started coordinating last year to now. So Joyce, Joy, John, but also Naomi, who I have seen around. Naomi, for being able to continue to sustain this secretariat. I think we are able to come here in a very organized manner, as Noreen said, partly because there is a home from which the organization is happening. It could seemingly be a small thing, but this is a big one. The fact that you have a structured framework for organizing and executing work of the Charter for Change fraternity in Uganda should be recognized and appreciated. So I do salute you all. Kahwa, our head of risk, invited me to say very few remarks this morning as you start off on this risk conversation. And I want to go back to the report that was recently released by Arthur LaRocque, John Okello, and his consulting team that discussed the nexus, the intersection, if you want, between C4C and the 8 principles versus or against the 3 issues of capacity, accountability, and trust. And I repeat myself, the C4C and the 8 principles vis-a-vis the 3 core issues of capacity, accountability, and trust. That is what that research last year by the consultant, C4C and the Uganda National NGO Forum looked at. And I'll start by saying, without addressing those 3 issues, the wish, the will, the visions, and everything we have to deliver the 8 C4C principles gets undermined from the word go. Because you can't do that without the right capacity. You can't do that without accountability. You can't do that without trust. It's in workshops like this, webinars like this, that you start to, in a very organic, gradual manner, start to sustainably address and put in place issues like capacity. Because who doesn't want to manage risk right? So this workshop is helping us do that. Issues like accountability. Doesn't want to be accountable. We know what the cost of not accounting is. You lose funding, you lose credibility. Other entities don't look at you as worth playing in the space we are all playing in. And of course, the third and last factor is trust. Who will deal with an entity that they don't trust? Even you people on the Charter for Change, the endorsers, you wouldn't deal with us, the signatories, if you didn't trust us. So getting into the space we are in this morning, for me, is part of the journey towards addressing that troika of issues. You've used the word searchable, fundable, and findable and fundable, that national NGOs under the Charter for Change fraternity will be searchable, so you can search and find them, will be findable, will also be fundable. Let me tell you this, without addressing those 3 issues, they may search for you, they may find you, but they will not fund you, let's be honest. And this is not only for C4C endorsers, it's also true for the signatories like CARE, Plan International, CRS. If we want trusted, if we want accountable, if we didn't have capacity, be sure no one will give us funding. So those three cut across the sector, and everyone should be working to attain them. Can I conclude my remarks by leaving three things on the table that I suggest that we consider as part of this process and after the webinar has ended? One is the appreciation of risk by organizations gathered here this morning. Do you appreciate risk? I was specifically avoiding the word understanding. It's a bit derogatory. Do you appreciate risk? And in appreciating risk, can you deal with matters risks? That's one question that should be put on the table. The second one is you then start to do risk framing. You start to look at frameworks, mechanisms, tools for addressing what you appreciate, which is risk. Because without those, then you're going to take a very patch-quilt approach to addressing risk, and you'll not go far. You'll still get drowned in the risk environment. So framing risk. And the third and last one, friends, on this webinar is risk management. You've appreciated, you have framed, you then move on to managing risk. As I get away this morning, ask yourself, the 33 or so members on this group, and if you want brands or institutions that are here, where are you at along that continuum? Are you not appreciating risk? Are you just starting to appreciate risk? If you're lucky that you're fully compliant in that space, have you framed risk? Have you got tools and frameworks to frame risk? If you've also done that second bit, then are you managing risk right? Because without those, you go back to that troika of capacity, accountability, and trust not being in sync. And when those are not in sync, the organization cannot go far. Let me leave it at that, as I wish you the very best on this webinar, and to the colleagues at CARE, the head of risk hour, you, Nampe, standing in for Ayena. I want to thank you for once again organizing us to come here, learn, share, and I'm sure take the C4C endorsers to another level, which is the ultimate goal of CARE and its peer organizations that are sitting on the Charter for Change Coordinating Group. Thank you very much.
Very much elaborate, informative, and full of wisdom. I want to thank you, Apollo, for your time. Thank you for speaking to us. I don't want to repeat his statements, but he concluded with very key, three key words: appreciation of risk, frame the risk, and manage the risk. And when we do the three, we are going to be trusted. We are going to move to another level, which is our wish and our ultimate goal as the coordinating agents at CARE, but with also the other signatories. At this very moment, I want to take us to another phase of the program. And here we have two presenters, and our two presenters are well gender balanced. We have one female, one male. Very deliberate on this. I want to tell you, when you don't integrate gender in the C4C interventions, your plans, whatever you're doing, you're going to miss a very big point here, and we may not achieve. So very deliberate. Our first key presenter, we have Kawa Peace, who works with CARE. She has 14 years of diverse experience in various sectors in development and development organizations, in government, private sector, and international organizations. Kawa takes on various roles. She has on various roles as IT specialist, business process engineering officer, quality manager, international control manager, as well as head of risk here at CARE. I also want to say that Kawa Peace is qualified. She has a BS in computer science, master's in business administration, She has got other disciplines that are very key to her role. Management. She has also got the PM authorized training as a key trainer in this. Kawa, you are most welcome and happy to have you and ready to listen to your conversation. I call it a conversation because we are learning, relearning now and then. And now I also want to introduce our next speaker here, and that will be a gentleman. Please, over to Robert. Thank you very much. Katumba James, most welcome and thanks. We are very much humbled to have you on this webinar. I know it's going to be very well balanced and very interesting here. And Katumba is a professional. Katumba has got experience in PIM, is a board member of the PIM Uganda chapter. Is a specialist in training global program on compassion from Compassion International. He's a Toastmaster. I know Toastmaster from Yenga. These are people who speak eloquently in whatever they do, and they send very strong messages, but also a consultant in project management and leadership. I want to let you know that Mr. Katumba James is currently rolling out a new online learning platform for children.com. He's also redesigning a learning model on School of Community Leadership under Watoto Ministry, and currently offering mentorship and social impact compact person in Rwanda to establish Operation Roadmap. He is also in collaboration with the Social Impact Volunteers Active Conversation with 2 universities with 5 campuses with the goal of delivering project management skills. Katumba is holds different disciplines. He has got certified virtual presenter. He's a John Speaker trainer, John Maxwell leadership team. He's also a disciplined Agile from Scrum Master. He's also a project manager. He has also disciplines in project management from authorized trainers partner. So Mr. Katumba holds a master's in organization leadership and also a bachelor in accounting and financing. Mr. Katumba, you are most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to run to our chat box. We have shared a link, and this link will have some questions which we are going to answer at liberty as we usher in our first presenter. And this is very deliberate, that at least by the time the first presenter has finished the presentation, we are able to share the feedback in that, so that she can be able to tweak it around with the presentation. At this very moment, allow me inviting none other than Peace Kawa for the presentation. Kawa, you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Noreen. Thank you for the very detailed introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the C4C family. I'm glad to have you aboard today. I would like to thank the C4C leadership team for allowing us to get back and re-engage with all of you matters risk. I am made aware that before today, there was another training that happened regarding risk. However, I say, why not come back and re-engage the teams and see where are we? Where are they right now, given that they already trained? And then I said, perhaps right now we have new members that probably were not there for the previous risk management training. How about we get them on board? And then also to just converse with you and understand how is the whole risk management appreciated in your various organizations. It's going to be very simple discussion. though with content. And we shall later on open up to members to have a question and answer session after I am done. So please feel free to also drop some of the questions you have along the way in the chat. I'm sure Noreen will support us in identifying the questions so that we can compile them and probably have the answer thereafter. Okay, with that said, I will request, just for purposes of having very clear network, I may not stay on video, but allow me to share my screen and proceed with our presentation for the day. Thank you very much. Noreen, kindly confirm that members can see.
Yes, I can.
Great,
John,
great.
John, do you see that as well?
Yeah, we do see.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Without further ado, I would like to re-echo that please look into the very short pulse check I have shared on the chat. It is a very simple and brief survey that we would like to make, and we shall share the results after the second presenter, because I will look at what has been shared and then I will compile accordingly and share with us. I would want to believe that what we shall get out of it will definitely inform us to an extent where we are as C4C, as a family, and then where we should probably place more emphasis. And just like Apollo mentioned, it is very critical for us to not to ignore risk, because this is an inherent part of projects, programs, our lives. This is something we cannot run away from. So why not rather look into risk and try to understand and manage it, other than hide and then we are faced with all adverse effects because we did not manage it in a timely manner. I would like to request, I think I can get feedback from someone. Kindly have second, John Jalo, right? I have just muted, so in case you need to speak, you will unmute. Thank you. So we are going to look briefly at what I have shared with us here. The risk pulse check has been shared with us. Let's go there and try to fill it up. And then we're also going to look at what is risk. I understand the trainings happen. Yes, that is fine. But after the training, do you still take risk to be what you thought it was before? Perhaps we could look at it and understand what is risk. And then what is risk management? Why are they important anyway? And then when we say we are managing risk, what are those processes that we just cannot run away from? You probably heard about it in the previous training. Is that what you have been doing? Could we check and confirm that actually the processes that should be followed are what you have been following? Just like Apollo mentioned, we may say we manage risk, but then there's nothing we can manage if we have not properly documented and then review and then ensure that we monitor. That is the process of managing. Because you saying you have collected they're somewhere gaining dust, that is not necessarily managing. You probably identified the risks, well and good, but if you do not keep checking on them to ensure that actually what the risks you identified earlier you're managing to see whether they have not happened, whether what will you require to manage them, then that is not necessarily managing. So we want to look at this and say, what exact management? Have we been doing it right? If we have, could us, we have to continue with this. Are there ways we can better this? We can discuss this. Then why risk management for local actors? I am certain that we all know that risk management in one way or the other has benefits. So for your particular organization, what is that key benefit? Right now you say, if I manage my risk, it will bail me or it will save me from having to face this. I'm certain each one of us has that very key priority benefit they get from risk management. Then readiness of the local actors to partner with INGOs. Right now, I must say, or I know that we all know that localization is the topic or is the talk on everyone's lips. Starting with Care International, this is something where we are speaking out and saying we must go localization because of all the benefits we have seen and we understand we get from this. And we are saying, fine, as we want to push this localization agenda deeper and further, are our local actors ready for it? We may want to pass on everything that comes along with localization. Are you ready to receive it? Then what can you do to prepare? The one key answer I know there is if we tackle risk, then definitely it puts us in a much better position to be able to prepare ourselves and ready ourselves for whatever partnerships that come along with INGOs and different donors. Then we look at how risk management cannot be spoken about, or we cannot say we are managing risk without ideally speaking about project management, because it is only but one of the pillars of project management. So what better way of bringing in project management? Because we might think we are managing our projects in the best way. And yes, some of us may actually be doing so. However, how about we also support those that are not yet there to reach there? Let us see how best this goes. And I'm hoping at the end of our engagement, we shall actually be able to walk out with at least, if not 1, 2, or 3 new things from this engagement. Thank you. So when we look at the very first part, I said, we are going to look at risk. Most of us may have the various definitions of what risk is to you. Different organizations may term risk whichever way, but what we have to accept as players within C4C space, NGOs, CBOs, we must appreciate that as long as we are taking on any assignment, as long as you wake up and you decide that you are going to actually deliver on something and you have set goals, set objectives, there will always be risk. And what is risk? This is something that is inherent. Every project is prone to risk because there is always a chance that things won't go as you have exactly planned out for them to go. This, I'm sure we can relate to so many of the experiences we may have had in our different organizations. So
Please. Hello. Have we lost?
Apologies for that. I think I dropped off. I will
I know
reshare my screen. Yes, I will reshare my screen yet again. Okay, so like I was saying, we are done understanding that a risk is something that may happen. And we are saying we must be able to actually manage this risk if we are to still target on receiving or getting the objective the project was intended for. But then again, we're also saying that when we go into risk management, let us understand that it does not necessarily mean that when you're managing risk, you are going to eliminate the risks in your organization. No. If we say care is managing its risk, it does not mean that from the day we start managing our risks, we are totally have eliminated the risks that we may face. No. However, we are saying as we manage risk, it is then going to help us gain a better understanding of whatever the risk may be, the nature of the risk, the scale, how big, how deep the impact may be, and what are the potential effects if this risk actually happened. So we are saying we are trying to position ourselves better to be ready to face whatever comes our way, just in case it happens. What we want is if our funders or our donors are to support us financially, they should also be comfortable and have trust that we shall be able to deliver. How will they have that trust? By knowing that just in case this thing happens, they are well prepared to handle it. That gives them a certain level and extent of trust in the organization, that they will actually see this project to the end, but also it knows that they will be able to commit and also account for these funds, whatever happens, because we are going to look at the different types of risks that may actually cause them to be jittery about even funding us, about even extending donations to us in form of funds. So when we talk risk management, I then ask us, this is not to answer, but just think about it. If you say as an organization, you are actually managing risks, what is the process that you actually follow within your organization? The training happened, fine. We have probably gone to school and some of us are probably qualified in managing risks, okay. But then what is on ground regarding risk management in your organization? Just think about it. And while we're thinking about it, I would like for us to also look at this very beautiful picture on the right of the screen that is showing us a standard process that is actually taken or followed when we say we are managing risk. I would like to take an example. Allow me to use care as an example, but where I say care, feel free to actually put in the name of your organization, okay? So that we move together in this. I don't want it to be it's not going to be as complicated, but I still want us to pick the concept of it so that we can go back and say, are we actually doing what we should be doing? Sometimes we tend to manage risk in a very ad hoc manner, such that the outcome of risk management is then not fully optimized. Where if we follow the proper steps, we would get probably 100% risk avoidance. Because we've not followed the processes right, you might end up getting maybe just about 80% of it. And then we have a 20% risk therein that is not catered for. So what better way than to know that if I am to manage risk, these are the proper processes or the steps for me to take to be sure that I am covered all round when it comes to risk management. And the very first step I would want, or I imagine we already know, is like I said, I will use care. Let us look at the first step where we are saying establish your context. So because I know in the C4C family, the endorsers, we have people from very diverse sectors in this organization, then I would want to believe that we are speaking to people who are in managing different thematic areas when it comes to programming. I'm sure we have people who are in climate justice, gender justice, livelihoods, humanitarian, and perhaps even some people who are as far within those different thematic areas. You even go deeper, some are into, I don't know, medical, some are into, name it, but very many. Now, us being so diverse, when we are thinking, contextualizing, now I will use care as an example. So if care is looking at coming up with our risk management, the first thing I'm going to think, I am seated in care, I am within the care space in terms of geographical setting, in terms of what exactly we offer as care. So when I'm thinking, what are those probable risks that may actually impact us, I must be in that position of wearing the hat that I am in care. That is the only way that I am going to start my process of risk management, right? Because if I identify risks that do not speak or relate to care, then I am going to come up with a very beautiful strategy on how to manage or mitigate risk. But this risk probably does not speak to care. So I still want to be managing the right risks for care. So wherever you are, whichever organization, whichever sector, as you're thinking of risks, or as you've probably been doing before, if you have been doing, have you been placing yourself in that seat of, I am seated here, this is the organization I am thinking about. You know the kind of work you do, you know the kind of the scope within which you offer the work that you do, you know the people that you interface with. All these are factors to be mindful of when you're establishing your context. And then if you know that, okay, I am actually seated and thinking of care and the risk that could affect care, and not thinking of, maybe I could say, save the children, but I'm thinking of care, then the risks that you will think of will only be tagged or related to the care space. Now, after you have established that, you have come up with your scope, okay? And then you must also be able to identify these risks. They may be, like we see on our diagram here, when you're identifying risks, you're looking at what are these risks? How will these risks impact us? Where are they actually going to impact us? Remember, I said in terms of scope, some of you are spread so wide. You're in the central, you're in the east, you're in the west, you're in the north, south. So you might find a risk that affects you, your office or your organization in the north may not necessarily be the same as the one that affects your organization in the south. So you must be mindful of that as well. Then there's also the when. Some risks are time bound. Some risks are seasonal. Yeah. So think about the risk of like droughts. You know, the weather is affected, you're impacted. Yeah. And then think about, okay, there's insecurity. Fine, we might say insecurity is everywhere in Uganda, but perhaps in the south, it affects, let's say maybe we have rebels that have engaged and they're somewhere in the down south. They're affecting your office in the south, but whereas in the north, it is not the ADF, it could be something else, like there is insecurity because of the Karamoja insecurities, where there's the fighting, there's the cattle rustling, there's everything going on. So it's also in a way a security matter. However, they're somewhat different. So all this we have to think about as we're identifying our risks. Let us not be drawn into getting Google risks, and then just because you want to tick a box and say, we actually have a risk register. No, then that will not help you, and it will not be able to achieve the intended purpose as of why you need to have a risk register. And not just a risk register, but one that is actually active, so that it will help you give guidance for decision making based on what you find at the various times you're monitoring your risk register. Okay, so after you've identified your risks, then you go ahead to say, what is the likelihood? Fine, we are saying we're going to probably have, there's a risk of fraud. We probably have a risk of insecurity, like I've said. We probably have inflation, okay? We probably have, there's so many risks we can think of. But then when we are thinking of them, then we do not have, if you've come up with 10 or 20 or 30 for your organization, for example, you're not going to rate all of them as high risk. But then you'll have to get that criteria to guide you. What is your matrix? What is going to cause you to say that the possibility of this risk happening is high, the possibility of this risk happening is low, the possibility of this risk happening is probably not even there. So perhaps we don't even call it a risk in this case, because you have to actually sit down and think about and think through all those. But while you're doing this, members, when we are managing risk, it is impossible for a team to manage risk in silos. You cannot say that you are going to sit as management, come up with a risk register, and then you cascade it down to the rest. It will not work that way. If we want to have a successful management of risks, what are we expected to do? To involve. You need to involve all the members, all your stakeholders in their various spaces. If it is finance, make sure every member in the finance team sits in these risk engagements. Let them be part and parcel of identifying what are those probable risks that may affect us. Because where you are not, they are, and they are the eyes in that space. And they can tell you exactly what they are seeing. You may miss a risk that they will actually easily pick up. So incorporate all the relevant members. Have your staff involved. If you're talking procurement, make sure everyone in procurement is there. If you're talking programs and you're saying field work, make sure all the field people attend that meeting. Let them be part of the team that identify these risks, because then it will be very easy for them to own up these risks. And then because they know we documented these risks somewhere, then they've been part of the team that now moves ahead to rank them. They know it is possible for this risk to happen first. This one will probably happen second, given our discussion and how we assessed. And when you're assessing, you're not relying on hearsay, but you're looking at what is the likelihood, but then also if it happens, what is the impact, okay? Because it might happen, fine, but then what is the impact? Is it high? Is it low? Is it medium? We have to put all these, we have to factor all these in for us to get a very robust risk, a tool, which is like a risk register, that will actually do the job it is intended to do. Let us not get information about risk management and say we were trained, we know, when we see it, we shall identify it. But please go ahead to document and put in place someone who's going to be responsible to be able to update these risk registers. Update, but don't just update and keep it updated, stashed somewhere, or you've saved it in some file or folder somewhere. No. After you have ranked, you know the analysis. Of course, now, as a team, you have gone ahead to look at all the probable ways you may treat this risk. You start from, is it a, now there you're getting a strategy on how you're going to manage the risk. Are you going to be able to eliminate it? Are you going to just mitigate it, put in place controls and measures that in case this risk happened, we will be cushioned enough not to be hit so hard. At least there's some level of preparation that in case it happens, at least we'll be able to do ABCD. Are you going to avoid the risk altogether? What are you going to do about it? All these are discussions that should be made in these risk engagements with your team members. There, they all own up to these risks. When they happen, you know who you have assigned to take on what risk. So it is easy to even manage when it happens. There's no surprise. If it happens, you know you planned for it, and this is how we intend to manage. Even when you have donors looking into C4C and say, let us see who we can work with, and they realize that, hey, these people here actually have a robust risk register, you know, they always will ask for this because no one is going to give funding blindly. They need to know where we are taking it. We live in this earth of you. We are on earth, and then we are in Uganda. Look at our economy and look at how the cultures of Ugandans are. In the past, we have seen, I don't think there's any project that has gone by without being impacted by risk in one way or the other. That is impossible. It might be either it was financial risk, maybe it was operational risks, maybe it was something social, related with social, maybe it was a do no harm risk, you know, but some sort of risk. So if you show that actually we are aware that these can happen and they may happen like this, however, when they happen, the impact is this much. They understand this person actually knows what they're talking about. And when it hits us, this is what we intend to do. This is the measure. This is the treatment we have for this. You're ready, you're prepared. This is the person who will actually manage this risk when it happens. They will be more comfortable dealing with such a person, even if it were you and you're supposed to partner with another organization and you find that level of risk awareness in the organization. It will give you that level of comfort to know you're dealing with a team that in case anything happens, we are covered to a greater extent. But after you've come up with a beautiful risk register, do not just stash it like I was saying. Let us have the people that have been identified to manage these risk registers, communicate the risk registers to the various people that matter. Make sure management gets to know. Make sure your teams are informed in a regular manner and in a very streamlined manner. No, every month we're having this meeting, we have to set aside a few minutes to discuss our risk register. It takes like 5 to 10 minutes, get to know what has transpired this month. And the responsible persons you identified should say, in my section, we are still safe. The risks are still potential, but nothing has changed. That is an update. You're monitoring. That means they are monitoring the risks. They're reviewing them. Where you said probably a risk was high risk because of one thing or the other, you've been able to implement something and it's no longer high. It's probably now medium or it's even low. Or even say, no, let us close it off our risk register. It's no longer even a risk. We've been able to manage it. Now, in that manner, you're able to show that you've actually monitored it, you're reviewing it, and it gives that level of confidence to the person who is going to work with you because they know this person is well prepared for whatever may come. That also shows a level of organization, as in the organization, you as the organization, you've planned and you've prepared and you're ready to take on the mantle to do what you have to do, what is expected of you. So I know many of us may have risk registers that may have various elements or factors or various, like you see what I've done on mine. It is very simple, it is basic, but trust me, it will do the job for the start. If you have nothing, this is a good starting point because you identify what it is, then you give a description of what that risk may be. We are saying it's financial, but what kind, because there are very many ways in which you can get financial risks. So you can describe according to what you are facing in your organization. Then you go ahead to rate it, because without rating it, then you won't know which one to prioritize. Yet it is very critical for you to prioritize your risks. Why? Then as management, you will definitely be able to also plan accordingly. Let's say finances, you know, there are some of these things that will always be constraints. There will be a constraint in your costs or your finances, in your budgets, in your time. As long as it's a project, this is something that is time bound, then the monies you're given are of course limited. It's not like overflowing or endless supply of cash. So when you have your risks prioritized, you plan better and say, okay, for here, we need to actually have these monies put aside. For this one, it may need more resources. So you even start planning and looking out for, in case this happens, where are we getting resources? They may be human resources. You may need equipment maybe more computers, or you may need to go to the field and you need some specific unique equipment, you plan accordingly. And that is only guided if you have a very live risk register, which is active and regularly updated. There you will get to optimize it, and you'll get all its benefits and the value of having a risk register and managing risk in your organization. So we have gone through this. Members have mentioned why risk management, and I would just like to re-echo, if we have risk management in place in our organization, these are some of the things we shall actually be able to benefit in. One, it will empower you to build capacity of your local actors. If I am working with an organization and I am placed in a situation, maybe in the field or in a space where I know that I have to prepare for this just in case it happens, it will make me more confident that I am going to go in and do the job I'm supposed to do, and I am prepared in case this happens. I am ready to tackle it. And I'm not tackling it alone because you've already engaged management. So in case there is need for their support, you're also assured that they will come in handy to support, okay? Then also it helps to foster ownership of the processes by contributing to contextually relevant risk responses. So ownership, remember I said when you're coming up or making discussions about risk, do not do it in silos. As management, when you sit and say you have your risk register developed, how then are the people down or below you, the teams that are in the field, going to comfortably manage what they probably might not even appreciate as a risk themselves? So for ownership purposes, for them to be able to willingly take it up and actually do what is expected of them, that is manage the risk, you make sure you involve them. Then it also helps to enhance organizational resilience, because here you have better preparation. You're able to achieve sustainable impact in the communities. You're able to foster partnerships and collaborations between INGOs and local actors, because, hey, they will look and say, this person is prepared. They can actually deal with this because they have shown me how they intend to avert or to manage these things when they happen. Now, I went ahead to look at some of the key risks that are faced in this currently locally led approach. We are preaching and saying we should all go the whole localization.
10 minutes.
And I looked at, yes, please. I looked at the power dynamics, because this is real. We look at the capacity constraints, which was also hinted on by Apollo. We look at sustainability challenges. What are they? And how are we managing them as the different organizations? Then we go ahead to look at the risk of aid dependency. Are we always looking out and saying, hey, if we do not get that donor funding this time around, we are done? Is that it? Yeah. Then financial and compliance risks. This is something we cannot ignore. We are faced with this day in, day out. Because we are given funds from donors, there are some regulations, there are some policies they will expect us to adopt from them. Are we complying with them? Because if you don't, then the chances of them not qualifying you to get their funds is very high. So these are some of the risks we must look into and try to manage. I just picked but a few, which I thought were priority or which I thought were ranking high, but please go right ahead as the different organizations sit down and see what I thought as high from my end and from the lens with which I'm seeing may not necessarily be high for you. So under power dynamics, what I looked at was the founders syndrome. And this is where we have organizations which are founded by either one of you overly take control and make decisions alone or as those few, which then impacts on innovation and creativity of the organization. And it does not necessarily mean that all the decisions they make are the best or they are the right ones. Then if you've employed someone, trust them enough to know that they're wishing or hoping for the best, and give them to an extent the ability to also make some of their decisions in their capacities. Okay. Then I looked at some of the mitigation measures. I'm sure you can come up with the various ones. Then we also looked at where we are looking at, whereas localization aims to shift power, we're saying if we localize, we're giving power to you, we're having INGOs pass on power to the national NGOs. But then again, we are seeing that there's also a risk there. There are tensions and conflicts during transition of this power. Yes, INGOs, donors, and even to the local actors. Why or how is this happening? For many reasons, such as there is fear of resource reallocation, and then there is fear of limited capacities by INGOs. They're saying we're giving these people more than they have held before. How are they going to manage it? So that bit of transitioning, there's a bit of friction right there. And this is the risk. And then also we have governance risks that come into how are these people structured? Do they have a board that manages them? How is the board working with the rest of the team? Do they even have a management team? How is it working? Is it functional, or are they just people put there to keep the positions? We have talked into the capacity constraints. These may be in form of resources, may be in form of expertise, or even effective. How are we effectively managing and implementing programs? Yes. So if we're saying as local agencies, we're taking this on, are we ready for that? Do we have what it takes? If not, what are we looking into to ensure that this risk does not hit us? Have you thought of empowering your teams? Have you thought of closing that skills gap by conducting trainings? Have you embraced technology and systems that can support to effectively deliver on some of these projects? These are things to think about. You'll also look at sustainability constraints. We say some of us, maybe there may be lack of capacity and human resources to manage and implement programs. So that's sustainability. So when this funding is not there, what happens? Does the organization close? So what have you thought about it? Are you thinking of diversifying your funding? Do you have funding strategies? How are you going to do it? Okay. Then we have sustainable risks happen when local communities are not actively involved or engaged in decision-making processes. So when you're going out into these communities, do you engage them, or you just go and say, we're bringing these guys, and while we bring this, you're supposed to take it up. Now there, you may have a problem. You'll find that they're not buying it in properly because they feel like it is not their thing. There's no ownership. You've just come and maybe imposed it on them. Now there, of course, they can even fail you because they might refuse to adopt or take it on. Then sustainability will be very, very hindered here. So we have to also look into those matters. Financial risks. This one I can't run away without saying. Let me just look at this and then I move on to the next. Limited diversity of revenue streams, where the NGO relies mostly on a single source of funding, hence making them vulnerable. If there is funding fluctuation, where you've always been getting 50%, this time they're giving you 20%, then what next? It also brings us back to diversifying our funding strategies. Then there is inflation because of exchange rates. We have seen this happen. How are you as an organization preparing yourselves for that? How are you managing it? Then there is this one we cannot hide our heads or bury our heads in the sands from, which is fraud. Financial mismanagement caused by poor financial management practices, such as poor budgeting, inadequate record keeping, even lack of internal controls. How are we positioning ourselves when it comes to matters finances and the risks that come with this financial management? Let us think about it. And please, whatever you do, try as much as possible to document these. We already talked compliance and said non-compliance to relevant legal and regulatory laws within the land, but also those that are passed on with the donor or by the donor. Okay, there are some we really cannot close our eyes to. There's ethical compliance that may cause ineligibility. You will not be able to get funding because they will say you're not complying to what they want you to comply with. So what are we doing about it? When we think about all that, that is just the tip of an iceberg I have shared with us. I am saying, how ready are we as local actors to partner with these INGOs? Remember, localization is going big. CARE is right behind the whole localization agenda. But how ready are you? Are you deliberately managing your risks at your organization? Do you know the risks even that are within the context you're operating in? Have you identified and planned for them? Are the risks, are you as an organization risk seeking? Are you risk neutral? Are you risk averse? But before you even become risk seeking and neutral and averse, how prepared are you for these risks? Then what is your organization's risk threshold? How much can you take in before you actually break as an organization? Have you prepared for that? Do you even know what that threshold is? Then have you, or do you have a risk management structure? Do you have a risk guideline? Do you have a policy of sorts? Do you have a plan that shows you this one is responsible? This is when we do the reviews. This is when we identify risks. Do you have that plan in place? Then we finally say sharing risks within the humanitarian system. This was a saying by that I picked from one of the issues in the Voice Out Loud. Sharing risks within the humanitarian system is an important part of localization debate. And indeed, now that we are going to pass on, localization is saying we're passing on power, we're passing on voice, we're giving agency. Then please let us not forget that even these risks that were managed from above are going to also be passed on to our local actors. Are we ready to manage these risks? Then I come to my final big question here. Are you findable? Are you searchable? First of all, then are you findable? When they search, will they find you? But then again, are you fundable? Can they trust that you will actually be ready to manage their funds? I leave us with that big question. With that said, allow me to say that I cannot speak risk without saying that it's part of project management. And this is just a pillar here of the various ones we're seeing here. So when we talk when we talk project management, we're looking at human resources, risk, scope, cost, communication, planning, time, and procurement. These are some of the core elements. And we have to ensure that we not only look at just a few of them, but holistically, when we say we're managing projects, look at each and every one of them. And I must appreciate that we are not all at the same level. There are those that are probably 10 years, 20 years into this. There are those that just started maybe last month. Then there are those that are somewhere in the middle. But at whatever point you're at, please remember that you can manage risks. And the sooner you start, the better, because it will place you in a better position. It will prepare you well. And then you're able to manage whatever comes your way because you're ready for it. So with those few words, allow me to stop here. Noreen, thank you very much for the reminders. I hope I've not overshot.
I love that. Just by 3 seconds. So hope the 3 seconds are not a risk to manage now. Huh?
Hopefully not. But yes, that is the beautiful risk talk I wanted us to review this morning, just to bring this back to memory and freshen us up on risk management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thumbs of applause. If you can give a thumbs up, if you can give claps online for Peace, who is our head of risk at CARE. I see people thanking you, Pete. Thank you so much. I know you've spoken a lot through the whole cycle of risk management, speaking to processes, documentation, review, monitor, and then manage, but also taking us to assess ourselves. What are the risks that that happen in our own institutions? So it is upon us as endorsers to check ourselves. What are these risks and how best can we manage them and address them as and individual organizations as C4C or as a collective, because that is the way to go. Thank you very much, Peace. And in the interest of time, I just want to alert all the members online, use the chat box for questions, for feedback. I'll be putting this up for the panelists so that we can go through them. Right now, I want to welcome none other than Mr. James Katumba, Project Management and Leadership Specialist, for the presentation. Over to you, Mr. James Katumba. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pete. All the protocol. My name is James. Can know how I can be able to share when delivered talk, but I will attempt to say a few things concerning project management. Please, I want to take it from where you stopped and tell people that the risk management component sits within a project management act. And then somebody has to have an appreciation of what project management is, that they can be able to execute effective projects.
Hi, John. You are kind
Yes.
of flicky. Do you mind if you stopped your video? Maybe it will be better. A little bit. Thank you very much. You can proceed. I will alert you. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. James.
Okay. Is that better now?
Yeah, sounds better.
Great,
Yes, better.
great.
Yeah, we've lost you.
Yep. Good. So,
James, we are losing you.
okay.
And we don't want to lose you. That's a big risk. We don't want to lose you.
Okay, there we go. All right. Are we good? Noreen, confirm if we are good to go.
Yeah, it sounds better.
Awesome. So I'm so sorry again for that. Before I went off, I was alerting everybody listening in that the risk management plan sits within the management plan. Then comes in is a place where they are able to appreciate how to manage a project from the word go. So my role today or this morning is to share a few nuggets that I feel are very critical for us to remind ourselves on what is important in terms of
We need to manage this risk. We need to manage the risk. John, advisors, how do we manage the risk? James is breaking. James is off. We need to manage this.
Yes.
Sorry,
James, can
Noreen. Please, would you kindly share my PPT? Then I change to another option, please.
Let me do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So one of the things that become very critical for us to be able to appreciate is how do we manage the projects that we serve? So through my presentation, I want to be able to talk about understanding of a project. Why is it important for us to understand the project life cycle? Some of the plans that Peace talks about are components of the project management plan. Therefore, when you are executing a project effectively within that domain, you need to understand what is it that you want to be able to do. Yes, so we want to be able to speak into a bit of the project management plan. We want to be able to speak into some of the components which are important for the project management plan. But allow me say this even from the call, ladies and gentlemen. Of late, the government of Uganda, on some of the big projects, is inviting practitioners to be certified in terms of project management. And so as we move into spaces of being searchable, spaces of being fundable, spaces of being fundable and findable, how do we position ourselves to become key players within the government space? So those are some of the things that I want us to speak through with your guidance. And then after, I will open it up for you to have a conversation. One of the things you want to be able to understand, all of you here, I know that you're doing projects, and so please do not even attempt to share with them the slide on projects. But of course, you can flash because some people may want to remind themselves. When we talk about projects, basically, we are talking about aspects that are going to create impact, we are going to create change, we are going to create outcome in a given community. It therefore becomes important for us to think of how best we are going to do this, ladies and gentlemen. So in projects in Uganda, you want to think about really other critical aspects. We want to think about components of skill. We want to think about standards. We want to think about policies, but also want to think about the industry where you are operating as a person. So appreciation of the standard becomes very for us to align our projects to the global standards. We want to get everybody involved. But how do we get everybody involved? We need to empower them. We need to skill them. We need to support them to get to a place where they understand how is the industry operating. So you in terms of the project, that when you think about which life cycle are we using as an organization, as a project, are we using plan approach where we sit and plan our projects from start to end? Are we using adaptive, which is change driven? Are we using the hybrid, which is the component of the two? These and some of the things become very critical tomorrow when you are aligning your project to the government, when you are aligning your project to major sponsors, because I'll tell you, words of collaboration, words of stakeholder management are very, very key in terms of project management. So we need to ensure that in execution of our project, we are aligned and to the standards globally, also nationwide, but then also which is the interested for a moment in the way you operate at your projects. Do you have all key people playing key roles within their setting? My colleague Peace kept mentioning about risk. One of the major roles, one of the major issues of risk is failure to have the right people with the right skills, delivering the right work. And so since the proof of concept has been endorsed and we are moving into localization, we need to skill. We need to appreciate the standards. We need to appreciate the concept so that your execution is within the framework. That tomorrow when regulators come and they want to be able to support, you are aligned. Project Management Institute, we have a Pulse report that releases every year. It has 4 power skills which are very critical for project professionals to thrive in their environment. And when we talk about critical power skills, you're talking about communication, problem solving, collaborative leadership, and strategic thinking. As the entity managing project management at a global level, research has been carried. These are very success factors for projects to effectively thrive in any environment, in any industry. In Uganda currently, as PMI Uganda chapter, we are trying to draft a bill where we are encouraging every person running projects, operating in project to be certified. Why? Because the global standards give you leverage to understand how the industry works. But you need to think about how do you rejuvenate your competence, your power skills to ensure that you effectively execute on those projects. Think about the people you work with right now. Do they have the abilities? Do they have the skills to execute on those projects? Because the moment there is a misalignment, then the project is going to creep, and then issues of incompliance leading to risk in terms of that project. Think for a moment, the projects where you have had a challenge, has it been more about skills, more about equipment and tools, or even failure to appreciate standards? That's something you want to back on. So then after, think about if you're in this call and you're a middle manager, how do I get my project team to have the right competence and skills to effectively execute? So just a way of reminding us, when we talk about a project, there are several stakeholders. There is a sponsor, there is a project manager, there is a team. These are things that you want to be able to remind yourself about. Why? Because everyone plays a critical aspect. When we have every role filled, it becomes easy that every track we need, every tool we need, every template, if we're talking about scheduling of our project, do we have the person doing that? If we are talking about managing the issues of compliance, do we have the person doing that? If we are talking about the issue of managing stakeholders, are we comfortable in that direction? Why? Because it becomes important for us to appreciate, ladies and gentlemen. Think for a moment. Have you been to a place where you discovered we have people who think are running a program, yet it's a project, or somebody is running a portfolio and they think they're running a program? So appreciation of what portfolio management, appreciation of what program management, appreciation of what project management is becomes very important. So we can have a portfolio manager who is managing multiple programs. We can have a program manager who is managing multiple projects, and we can have a project manager who is managing the project. These are global standards that are going to ensure that tomorrow when your project has been opened up for funding opportunities, you are in alignment with the global standards. So the books that we use in our trade, we use the project management book, which is now on 7th edition, but I know some of you have ever had, say maybe version 6, but they are helping us to ensure we are aligned. That's why sometimes we even have somebody who has done Prince coming back for PMP or coming back for Agile certification. Why? Because we need to be able to understand. And the basics for every project to be executed sits within the 5 process groups. However, the modalities, the way the industry is evolving right now, we don't sit back and say, now we are initiating a project. Now we are planning a project. It is a progress. And so understanding the way the standards work becomes important. Think for a moment, is every member at your project comfortable with running a project through the 5 process groups? Do they know which templates to use? Do they know which process to adhere to? Do they know which standard and guidance they need? That's something you want to think about. So when Peace tells me, James, come and talk about some of the best practices. Again, I'll refer you to the recent report, again, we call it the Pulse Professional Report. The key drivers for project success. We are looking at projects where there is low scope risk. We are looking at standardized risk management practices, stakeholder engagement. And if you look at this report, these 10 key success drivers on the next slide, please, you'll be able to appreciate that I need to go back in my domain and ask myself a question. How are we executing projects within our environment? Do we have people who are competent enough How do we realign ourselves? If you have been hearing me so much, I'm talking about realignment, because the absence of the project management plan as a plan, where the risk management plan sits, you cannot handle risk management outside project management standards. Therefore, it becomes very important that everybody on projects understands how to run projects according to the industry. Please kindly throw up that teaser for them. You can see some people who still remember what are the top 4 power skills that project professionals utilize to effectively fulfill their mandate. That was meant for people to see if they're still listening, but I know they are very, very busy after such a long. Of course, I talked about this, but if you're able, you could go to the chat and drop it there so that we know that you still remember about the top 4 according to the Pulse report. What are those? And again, if you drop them, I'm very sure that Peace or Noreen will be able to track them. And then number 2 piece, the other teaser which I had in my PowerPoint was, there are 4 options which I'm giving to people as well. An organization can have a program without a project. A project manager gives leadership functionality at the top of the portfolio. A program manager oversees the daily operations. The mind behind that teaser as well was to see your understanding of what program management is, project management is, portfolio management. I am sure you have noticed that there are some components in there which are false, then true. But at the end of the day, when we get a chance, we shall circle back and you'll be able to appreciate. Therefore, project management as a practice sits on basically 4 domains. We call that the project management talent triangle. Ways of working, which focuses on processes, power skills, which focuses on the way you connect with people, and then the business acumen, which talks about alignment of the project in the industry. Sometimes because I love connecting, that's why you say I was fighting on my video. Some of these things, there is a level of intentionality that the projects in Uganda need to be able to appreciate, a level of professionalism. Some of us that have worked with organizations which are global, you realize the level of detail in preparation, the level of policies, templates. We need to think that now if we are in the spaces of scaling out in terms of ownership, scaling out in terms of collaboration, how do we align? So ways of working, we're talking about approaches, power skills, you're talking about soft skills that are going to enhance, and then the business acumen, which is the bigger picture. How does the project fit within the strategic plan of the organization? So when we interact with the ground, are they able to answer those questions? The strategic plan. Why? Because the project has to be anchored within the strategy, the 10-year strategy, the 15-year strategy. That becomes important. And do we have the ability to share the big vision so that everybody can be able to listen? As a project manager, do you have the ability, do you have the interpersonal intelligences to communicate vision? You could be technical, but do you have the ability to share the vision and cause alignment? Let me tell you, localization requires that every stakeholder has a buy-in. We have everyone involved and everyone says, this is our thing. When you go in the communities where we are having our hands on, does every person have a grip that this is our thing? So when we are executing, we don't execute because we are helping somebody do their work. We know this is what we are supposed to do. And we are supposed to do it right, ladies and gentlemen. So speaking into alignment is very key. Therefore, the project team will have to understand all the stakeholders on the project. So you're going to do a stakeholder mapping, you're going to have a stakeholder register, you're going to come up with a stakeholder management plan. It has end users, customers, employees, organizations, lots of people who are going to ensure that the project, you are in collaboration with every person on the project. So that when you ask, do we have a stakeholder register? Nobody is. struggling to answer that. Please, there's another teaser in terms of process groups. If we had a chance as well, we would have asked people that the following process groups according to the PEM book. So I had put for you planning, execute, conceptualization, initiation. There we go. So again, just to be sure that I've got people who are alert, I had put another teaser for you to check you. Remember, I talked about the 5 process groups. When you look at that list, which ones are off? So again, that could be a checker for you to check if you are following with us, ladies and gentlemen. Think for a moment. If we are talking about being searchable, how do we position? That word has come up, positioning. Positioning requires that we are doing work effectively and efficiently in alignment with all compliance issues, in alignment with all global standards. And so how do we get ourselves? And so power skills is not something that you want to put light. It is critical. That's why you see again another finding which I put in our report, organizations that prioritize power skills, the percentages in terms of business goal alignment, in terms of scope creep. Look at the 40% of organizations which do not prioritize power skills, 40% projects going off creep, projects going off target, and as a result, they can't reach their maturity stage. Somebody has vested money for this project to work, but unfortunately, because the scale and the alignment to standard can't happen, the project goes off creep. Look at the 25% in terms of budget. So those are things you want to be able to appreciate. So when, again, just for re-emphasis, if you are on this call and you are effectively executing projects, you want to understand the development approach. Are you using plan-driven? What are the characteristics? Are you using agile or are you using hybrid? Because understanding the approach informs the operations. Understanding the practice informs the way you are going to be able to do the work. I keep re-emphasizing 2 things, approaches and power skills. So I want you to look at the list of leadership skills and competences, which falls under the docket of power skills. And ask yourself a question and your team, if you're listening with your team, how do we get people? Please, you may want to put on that slide of leadership skills and competence. How do we get people to appreciate their skill development? How do we get every member of my team to grow in communication? Because communication speaks into collaboration, stakeholder management. If we have conflict management, as Bruce Tuckman talked about, understanding which stage of the team are we in, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. I want to be able to understand the culture awareness. You can have such a powerful project, but do you have the level of appreciation of the culture in which we are deploying this project so it can work effectively? If we're talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about expert judgment, these are things that are very, very critical for us. So if you could ask me best practices, number 1, align the project to the standards. Number 2, equip the team you're working with to ensure they are proficient. Number 3, build strategic alliance and networks with like-minded organizations in the same space. Number 4, as organizations, provide space for your team to be able to pursue professional development, which will give them a chance to grow in their competence. And finally, let us create an enabling environment that enables that everyone is proficient doing their work, because designing a fundable project requires a level of industrial awareness, requires a level of information that people need to be aligned to the industry, but also what are the global practices, so that at the end of the day, our project can effectively reach and deliver the impact it is designed to do. Let me end with this quote by Peter Dunn: is hearing what isn't said. Please, you may want to put on that. When you see organizations investing into scaling more deeper, closer to the community, and running proof of concept, running different aspects in terms of localization, I want to be able to ask myself, what is it that they are not saying? So if I'm in the range of their operations, how do I position myself for effectively delivering projects, not just as something everybody is doing, but something that I can do effectively where? So please, back to the ownership of this entity that is the
I hear you loud and clear, Bwana James. Thank you so much for the eloquently prepared presentation, and well said. Well said. A lot has been said, but again, the last statement posed the risk to what I was going to speak to. What is it that isn't said? So I can't repeat your words because you've said them. Ladies and gentlemen on the call, what is not said? I'm going to give very few minutes for the question and answers. I'm going to give 3 questions to our presenters this morning for this special webinar, and then we shall run to John Ojal to crown it. After that, we shall close this webinar. Over to the questions, if any. Please just unmute and present your question, but also remember to fill in the pulse check that was shared, as well as feel free to introduce yourself online. These, they will help the rapporteur to take the minutes for this, and then we move forward. Henry, please. Henry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Noreen, and thanks to the 2 presenters, including the country director for CARE. I think the knowledge is quite deep here. And I was just having a conversation with Naomi. Just to mention, I'm Henry Owora, the program manager for the Internal Risk Management Group. These are just thoughts and not questions. I was chatting with Naomi, telling her that it is important for us to consider risk management as a strategic partner into our operations. Just like M&E was then, but now it's considered as a strategic partner within our operations. I wanted to suggest something that as C4C, we need to have visibility of all the actors, both the endorsers and the actors, because we know that there's risk transferred from the endorsers to the actors and vice versa. We do not have, many organizations do not have risk management KPIs. And so even tracking some of these things can be very difficult. But then I was suggesting that as Charter for Change, or even as the endorsers, do we have visibility on the maturity of each organization within our space? Do we have a dashboard that can suggest to us that organization X is on level 1, organization X or Y is on level 5? I think for me, that is something that is very critical. And as the IRMG would be willing to support with the process of carrying out a maturity assessment and just having a dashboard for each and every organization. Lastly, I think for me, risk management, as we've all been sharing, should be actionable. At times, it's good for us to carry out trainings and such sessions, but how are we evolving beyond receiving the knowledge into actual practice? Because risk management is about knowledge, practice, attitude change, and also the changing the culture within the organization. I submit. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Henry. Good submission there. Risk management should be actionable to allow us move, to allow us address the risks that we face in our individual organizations. Over to you, Pete, if you've run through the pulse check to give us 1 or 2 or 3, and then we shall go to the C4C admin. Peace.
Okay. Yes, yes.
A quick one,
Thank
please.
you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Noreen. In just 1 minute, allow me to just share my screen and I show you what has come out. Unfortunately, out of the, how many are we? About 34 participants right now. At one point, we were 41. I would like to appreciate feedback from 19 people. I don't know if more of them are submitting, but let me just share my screen and members will be able to see for themselves where we lie. Matters risk. There we go. I hope we can see my screen. There were only 5 questions that I put out there. Actually, there were 6. And we see that the first one I asked the gender. Thank you very much for the teams that have submitted. Amongst the 19, 52% of them were ladies and 47% gentlemen. That could be maybe because we had more ladies on the call. And perhaps I wouldn't want, but let us make out what we can make out of the information we're getting. It is left for analysis, but that is it for now. We move on to the next, where we asked whether your organization is a national NGO or a CBO.
1 minute,
We've had, okay, we've had 52% of the members who are on the call as part of NGOs. Then 26% was CBOs. So we've had 21% of others. I will dig more into where the others fall. There was also a question that asked whether there had been any formal training on risk management, either personal or organization initiated. And we can clearly see that there is still need for us here to improve because a whole 57% says no, they have not had any training. And I would want to believe that each one of us on this call is a member of an organization and playing a part in a project or a program. In a way, they are part of the chain that is helping to deliver on the objectives of the organization. So it is critical that we note that, and let us go back in our organizations and see, just like Mr. Henry, the person who has just submitted, mentioned, let us not keep this as just paper stuck up there, but let us activate this. Let us have this give results because we have risk management in our organizations. The next was just about if your organization has a risk culture, do you have values or beliefs or attitudes you believe in regards to risk? Do you have, the way we say this, zero tolerance to fraud? Do you have such commitments as organizations? So here, it is good to note 65% have said yes, 25% have said no. And then I think the 10% is saying maybe they're not certain about it. Finally, 75% of us, 75% of us have said that they actually actively manage risk in their organizations. This is encouraging to note, but like Henry said, it is very good, or it would be very good for us to be able to visibly see where everyone is lying. And that is the only way we can get support. So maybe this is something C4C can think about. And since the offer has come in from IRMU, then maybe they can take it up and see how this can be taken on. So thank you very much. I'll up here and take it back to you.
Super. Peace, thank you very much. Since I don't see any other hand up, allow me call in John Ojal, one of the leadership members of the Charter for Change 2020-2025. John, over to you as we round up and close this session. Thank you, John. Over.
Thank you very much, Noreen and everyone. And thank you to all the members for your patience. And The session was really very informative, as you mentioned. Key takeaways, because our time is up. One is that we thank all of you for staying up this far. I know we are getting ready for the Easter break. All of us want to empty our desks before we run away. So we appreciate that you stayed with us this long. One key thing that I picked was failure to have the right team in the right place. And I think this is a chronic illness with us, the local actors. Not intentional, because we don't have the funds to hire everyone. We don't have the funds to hire the internal risk, the fundraising manager, and so forth. So you find that we are, the finance manager is the compliance manager, is the whatever, like one person with so many roles. So my advice would be that we up our game in terms of raising more resources so that we can have the right team, because that is very important. The second one is risk is a connection between proposal writing, brand marketing, and sustainability. I can tell you, you can write a very beautiful proposal, but when they come for assessment and your risk score is high, believe you me, the decision will turn, despite your very beautiful proposal. You can have a very good brand, but if you don't pay attention to any of the risk categories mentioned here, believe you me, you can go back to level 1. And what about sustainability? Some of us are no longer in the market now, just because of mismanaging one project funds, and you are gone forever. I don't want to mention names, but until we get to be honest and accept the risk is when we will move forward. So I think we're not talking about something that is not here with us. We are talking about something that has been eating us every day. And we only learned about how important it is at the last minute when we are almost failing. I think early this year, we met with the coordinating INGO, that's CARE, and I was very clear together with the chair that this year, we want to have the searchable, findable, and fundable local actors. And this is very true, because we're not here as the leadership to give you funding. We are here to make you a partner that can be trusted, a partner that if they go to West Nile, they will find you. If they go to Acholi sub-region, they will find you. If they go to Western region, they will find you. This is our work as the Charter for Change leadership. So can we take the risk from risk awareness to risk ready, as the CD for CARE said? Being risk ready means from this meeting, if you don't have a risk register, can you please start? If you have a risk register, can you go and look at it and tell us whether you are moving well? And if you have, I'm not saying come back to CARE and get it. Engage your partner that's already working with you. It could be Oxfam, it could be DCA, it could be Plan International. Engage them to make sure that you have the risk register in place. This session is to open your eyes and our eyes. The action is yours. I hope we will have a findable and fundable local actors this year and moving forward. Thank you very much on behalf of the C4C. Over to you, CARE.
Thank you very much, CARE, the coordinating agency for all signatories. I want to salute you and say thank you so much. At this very moment, I want to declare the webinar closed, but before you go off, please put on your cameras. I know the Secretariat will take a picture of all those who have been on. Kindly put on your cameras. We want to see your beautiful faces. Now, I saw you hiding somewhere. Now, Donna, all those, wonderful, wonderful. Now, quickly,
hiding behind
your neighbor should take the pictures. Guys, put on your cameras. Now, I miss your smile. And your neighbor, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Someone is helping us take the picture. This will be in our report for this webinar. So thank you so much. Do come again. Let's be active, because together we can, and we are deliberate on having a trusted C4C chapter in Uganda. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day and have a nice weekend and a good Easter. Thank you.
Happy Easter. Thank you. Thank you.
Easter, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Happy Easter. Thank you.
Happy, ladies and gentlemen.
Great.
Thank you.